What's poppin', people? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. My name is Elixir, and I went undefeated at my last event playing GraceNova. So I'm going to go into the deck profile. This was actually supposed to be a little bit delayed, where I was going to make sure the deck was fully deproxied, but we were able to run proxies of EX05 cards at this week's local. And, you know, as much as it may be a local, it is one of the strongest locals around. You've seen our results. It goes crazy. But yeah, I'll just be going through the 50 cards we put together because this deck, honestly, they say that necessity breeds ingenuity. And since we've only got 4 of each, ingenuity is what we needed, and it absolutely cooks. So we're going to get on with the profile. So Digimon starts at the eggs, and so will we. We are actually on 5 eggs, and it is Sunmon for the first one, as you'd expect. We're going to be running him as a 3 of, and most of you go, okay, so Moonmon's next. No, we're on Gurimon as our next one. Gurimon is fantastic. It's a red egg, enables your red source. Sometimes you do wish you just had the blue source, but it is what it is. Gurimon from the reboot booster. When one of your effects places a Digivolution card under this Digimon, draw 1. So that does come up a lot. Obviously, not being able to evolve for the 1 cost less does hurt, but every egg that's not Sunmon is going to do that. So we're just going for the egg that gives us the most value as a secondary egg. In terms of Digimon, we're on 4 of the Coronamon. No surprise there. We've only got 2 rookies to choose from, so we're going to be running 4 of those. And he gives you the memory at the start of your main phase if you do have a Nightfang Tamer, which you do want to have out as soon as possible. And then 4 of my son, 4 of my daughter. We are on 4 Lunamon. She is fantastic. Arguably the better egg, especially if you're ahead or if just early and stuff isn't getting punished. Being able to bounce back one of your Digimon to gain 2 memory comes up quite frequently. We are on 2 Ukomon because it is post BT14 and Ukomon is everywhere, but he evolves on anything, so you can go over your eggs is fine. Your chain does end there, but him being able to give you the extra memory and hatch can basically add up. So you can have turns where you just push up and go straight to 5 memory off of Corona and Uko, or you can have the push up, then get your memory, get your rehatch. Lunamon bounces the Ukomon back to hand, hatch in the back again. Fantastic card. And the last card, the little bit of spice, the original spice actually before Ukomon, is 2 searches. Now, you may be thinking, oh, that seems a little bit weird. It comes down for 1 if you've got no searcher on the board. And Lunamon keeps bouncing cards back to hand to gain 2 memory. So you can have many opening turns with Lunamon, play searcher, choke them to 1. They choke you back to 1 by evolving for 2 or playing training. Push out Lunamon, bounce back your searcher, you're at 3. Just instant memory fix. And then you've got no searcher, so you might as well just bring it down for 1 again. Fantastic card, and these white cards are what really help accelerate this. Until we get the Agumon, I think this is what you should be on. If you really want to make sure you're always evolving, you could sub out some of the searchers for the Ukomons, but the searcher being able to come down just helps you deck thin so frequently, more frequently than having 2 would make you think. But fantastic card, just thins the deck for no reason, and you are going memory positive even if you're just playing the searcher straight back. So we're on 12 3-cost Digimon, of which you can evolve over 10 of them. In terms of the 4s, this is where you are on a little bit more of a standard, just 4 and 4. We're not running any extra level 4s here. We are just making up for it for the fact that we have the extra 3 costs. So just try and dig through your deck as much as possible. The minigame basically comes down to how many of these have you seen and making sure that you can actually just climb with them. You kind of just make or break. Sometimes you just have to mulligan if you don't see a 4, even if you have the rest of everything. Sometimes if you've got like Luna plus Searcher, you can just keep a hand that doesn't have a 4 and you just hope that you can dig into it fast. But realistically, you are trying to see Luna plus 1 of these or just generally the full line. Because going first, transparently, for these ratios, I like to go first. I know a lot of GraceNova players like to go second so you can get the extra card draw. I like to go first because I will go Luna and then play a 4. And then next turn, push up, bounce my 4 back to hand, gain my memory, and then evolve the 4. So it helps you, sure, you're giving over a lot, but turn 1, you're probably not getting punished. And it just means you just commit to playing on board. So we are just on 4 and 4. And we do have The Lekis is probably what you want to see more often. As much as the Fire is great for going hog wild defensively, it does enable the one of Zudomon as our solo ace in this one. It does come up if you just leave a Lekis, which sometimes does happen, can be pretty useful. Catches people off guard, and I think of all of the aces, right now, it's the strongest solo one because you can just drop it for 4 and strip and bounce and just clear things that are just being a little bit of a nuisance. It allows you to be a lot more selective about what you're stunning or popping with Apollo or Diana. So we are just on the one ace. Doesn't come up all the time, but it is useful. And it is a 4-drop level 5 that lets you just go into something else if you need to. We are going to be padding out the ultimates with what you'd expect. For GraceNovamon, this card goes stupid. The fact that it can just stun anything regardless of requirements is kind of obnoxious because a lot of the other ones have like DP limits or anything like that. 5k DP, sometimes if they're sitting at 6, you're just like, ah, if only I could do something about that. GraceNovamon is just like, nah. Against plants, very, very useful. It stops. You obviously want to pop like the Floodgate Pomimon with Flaremon, but stuff like Sunflow, just being able to stun it or things like that, regardless of whether they evo over it, is really, really nice. And the plus 2k inherits on either side are fantastic. The red ones give you plus 2k on your turn, blue ones give you plus 2k on your opponent's turn, which helps you just make some big beefy blockers should you need it. So we are on 9 level 5s. Relatively easy to find because you can take, off the 4s, you can take one of its color and then one of the other color or galaxy. Important to know which one is which and make sure that you're evolving the right one, because sometimes you do just end up having 3 targets because of the galaxy, but realizing you actually can't take your first target, so you're actually picking one from the 3. The last proxy that I need to get rid of is the Dianamon, and then we are on 3 regular ones. So yeah, again, went undefeated much sooner than expected, so this deck profile comes out a little bit sooner than expected. For Diana and for Apollo, cards are both broken. This card, make a big stack, strip all the sources out of something, and then everything with no sources can't attack. Just basically an EX Sorai, just straight up better. Is a blocker, and it also gives you the unsuspend if you strip, which means if you're doing Apollo swing for a bajillion checks, and then there's something that has sources, you can go into Diana to restand and then do it again. The Apollomon, for every 3 sources, you get sec +1, and if you've got a bunch of red sources, he's swinging for comically large. And on the first check, remember to do it on the first check, it pops something that is lower DP than it, which allows you to just basically bully anything that goes on board, which means a lot of your stun targets with GraceNovamon is figuring out what you need to stun and what you're going to blow up. Very, very important. Apollo, fantastic card. Just straight up belligerent, honestly. Like, I think Diana in a vacuum will be the tech card that goes in a lot more decks, but Apollo is way better in this deck. It is just so incredibly belligerent. But yeah, we're just, I mean, having 8 level 6s is already quite a lot. So we're just going to stay on those, and we are going to be on 2 GraceNova. I know a lot of people call the deck GraceNovamon, but Dawn and Dusk, Day-Night Cycle. This card is only for the decks that run security bombs. Like Apollo swinging for 1,000 checks, fantastic. It just allows you to just super aggro someone down. If you've got like a, you know, an Ukomon helped you do something, you'll have a rookie that finishes things off if you're not blitzing. GraceNova is there for when you recognize that you're playing into a deck that has just sec bombs. If you're playing into Beelstar, if you're playing into Beelzemon, you're playing into Setcon, and you need to give up the checks in order to just guarantee that the body will stay. That's more important. I played a game, in fact, on my run where I was playing into Beelzemon, and I was sitting on like a 3-check Apollo, and I just kept passing turn. I was like setting up to do the start of their turn GraceNova, because then I would just have protection, and then I could just slowly go 2 checks, 2 checks, 2 checks. Kind of like the Pokemon approach of 2-2-2. I think it just worked out fine, GraceNova. It's a fine card, but Blitz Omni has basically the same protection in all honesty. And whilst it's not going to be the 2 checks, it'll be sometimes what you need. If you have to finish a game with Dianamon stun the board to swing their last check, Blitz Omni is always there. If you're blitzing on Apollo, you're not going to be gaining that memory back unless there's an overflow stack. So you're not really going to go Apollo then Omni, but Diana into Omni is much more common. So we are running the 1 Blitz Omni because it is quite useful. And GraceNova, sometimes it's just a bit too expensive to go into if you're not cheating it out. So 3 level 7s to join our level 6s. And we are on 4 Ko and Sayo. 3 Sayo and Ko. I honestly now just say the front tamer, so Ko and Sayo. You could say like the Lightfang tamer and Nightclaw tamer, but I think we all as a community should just get into the habit of calling them by the first tamer. Ko is the Lightfang tamer, Sayo is the Nightclaw tamer. I'm incredibly biased because I am a guy that played Dawn and didn't play Dusk. Like, I do love the rest of the Dusk line, but like, I'm a Dawn player, so this is my canon, Ko and Sayo. And honestly, in terms of usage, Ko is more useful. Ko is a gross extender. The fact that after it's come down, it's just a free cycle on your combos makes it so much more important, especially being a mem setter, helps you just get out of sticky situations. It means that pushing up a ChronoMon always guarantees you to be at 4 memory, which is pretty good. This is a fantastic extender. You can drop this midway through your combos where you give up a little bit of tempo, but you get more value out of it. And if you've seen the simulator games, you've seen that this card is actually technically the more important card once you've got one Ko and Sayo. Like, these obviously stack in terms of just getting you extra value, but in terms of extension, this represents more memory on the turns where you don't need to go split for a level. And it also means that when you do the inherit effect off of your rookies, you're gaining 3+ memory instead of just 2. Which in some cases is more efficient than actually using the Ko and Sayo. No real way to cheat out the tamers except by dropping 5 memory for a Goodnight Moon, which lets you stun a Digimon, a tamer, and play a tamer of your own, which sometimes, whilst 5 is a lot, it does give you the value for this. It sucks that you need a blue source sometimes, and this one doesn't let you ignore color requirements, so sometimes you do get stuck on a memory tamer, no Sayo, and you just have to like maybe degenerate and try and get to a blue source to then play this and get the value out of that. Since we're not on Moonmon, you don't get the evolutions or anything like that, which is a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm not actually on Phobos, but I think I will try and find a space for Phobos because in single stack matches, the Phobos gets a lot of value. And sometimes if you run out of 4s, it's a great way to recur them if you can't find things. So I think that that is probably something that you need to think about in future. Right now on this list, I'm still quite happy with no Phobos. It's just something that maybe you'll see in future while I'm testing a couple of ratios, we tech it out. The last 2 cards instead are going to be Rowdy Rocker. And the reason we're not on Phobos is because I often don't need to recur pieces. I need to draw them. And this card goes stupid. I cannot understate how dumb this card is. Place 1 red level 4 or lower Digimon under your hand as a bottom Digivolution card if you do draw 2. Which means, as we get into a little bit of a combo section, you can do some heinous things with it. So just a couple of examples of like stuff that came up in the matches that I played this week is just some of the combos that you can do is you, as I said before, say, you know, they've put you to 1, or in this case, you got a mem set, he put you to 3. Bouncing back your searcher, you're going to 5, which just gives you so much extension, just an insane amount of value. Another thing that comes up is it actually won me a game where this particular egg drew me the exact thing I needed to give me extension. I was under a mem setter or something like that, but I'd actually run out of 4s, like all of them in trash, like, well, not all of them in trash, but most of them in trash. And it was like, I have the rest of the line. I can go for full stun here and like force a game winning situation as long as I find a 4. Draw for turn, nothing. There's no Uko out, so I don't get anything else. It is just, I push up my Lunamon on an empty field. So I am on like 3 or something. I can't fully remember, but you can do stuff like this, where you Rowdy Rocker for your 2, you load in your ChronoMon, and you draw 1 off the Guri and 2 off the Rowdy. So you get to go +3. And say you're in a situation where you're like, you're up this line, just check our top 3, double hit. You know, you're doing what you do. You do your combos. You gain your 2. You know, we're just vibing. We're just going up, doing what we do best. Just checking everything. Oh, double hit again. Crazy. Just getting that value just because we were able to like Rowdy Rocker our way up. Go for a 1. Flaremon. Oh, you know, we've already used our Lunamon. Luckily, ChronoMon's just right there thanks to the Rowdy Rocker. We've now got another degenerate source. Let's print 2 more memory. Let's just do it. Why not? And remember, this is without us gaining the 1 cost reduced. So this stack, a little bit more expensive. Doesn't matter though, because here we go. We're just vibing. Oh, you know, we need to, let's stun something as well, you know? Bam, you know, for 0. Wow, that's crazy. Anyways, let's go Apollo 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, let's go 4 checks, please. What are we doing? Yeah, so it's just stuff like that. It's little things is why you can be greedy on, like, the Greemon, I think, is the best second egg, because situations where Rowdy draws you 3 is just so much card cycle. Situations where you need an extender and you've got the memory to play with it. The fact that as long as you have the 2 memory, placing a Coronamon underneath immediately refunds you its value because you can just degenerate straight away. There are situations where you're obviously on 1 and Rowdy is going to pass turn, which sometimes can give you the choke. But more often than not, if you're at 2, Rowdy, Corona, straight back. It does mean that you want to be sometimes saving your Coronas in hand and using Luna as your like actual Evo pass, so that way you can cheese it. But I've also loaded a Fyra to make sure that I'm swinging for slightly higher than thing, like Quartz. It's like, oh, how big is Quartz? 15? Oh, I'd be 13. Okay, Rowdy, load an extra source. Now I go, well, I'm like 14, so I'll die. It's like, okay, now I'm 16, go over everything. Stuff like that, being able to load the 2K source. Obviously, you can't load the Flaremon, but Firemon and Coronamon allowing you to either print memory or gain an extra DP that you might actually need is super, super useful. And of course, getting the draw off of it is always fantastic. The other thing to note as well is it's when a Digimon is, a Digivolution source is loaded by an effect. So even if you're not using Rowdy Rocker, just the act of Lunamon's Inherit, putting Firemon here draws you a card. So that's something as well that's super, super useful. So you do your thing, you go into Fyra. In fact, my most common turn 1, if I'm not doing the Searcher, looks kind of like this. I pass them 4, say they choke me to 1, they often do. They're like, ha, this will stop. Move out, back to 3. I now have my 4. Straight into it, draw, check the top 3. Double hit. Gain back my 2, draw 1 off Guri. Oh look, I found a 4 and all that. Back we go, and you continue the cycle like that. So it's... Sunmon is still the better egg, don't get me wrong. Like, Sunmon being able to climb is there, but Gurimon absolutely won me games. And I don't think going for jamming or going for play a Tamer evolve and spend more memory in the process is worth it at all. If you want to cheat out a Tamer or feel like you're getting more value from your Tamer, play Goodnight Moon. If you find yourself just losing pieces, try and find space for a Phobos. I don't know what I would cut Phobos for, because I think you need 2 searches in order to find them as soon as possible. But Phobos is also recurable. Maybe you don't like Goodnight Moon, you want Phobos, or you cut one of the memory setters in order to do it. I think you can still run it as a 4 because you get exponential value, and the fact that when it pops out of security, you can use its on play to then do a cycle, which means you might get to stun something, you might get to pop something, you might get to go into off of an Apollomon into a Dianamon, which then strips, unsuspends, and stuns. Means that this card is a security bomb if you're playing on board. But I think you still need the blue Tamer because it is really, really useful. In fact, the last combo that I will show before we call it quits for today is sometimes you can end on a board like this, where you pass them whatever, and you have your 4s. I said before that the mini game is both players keeping track of how many 4s you've used. Well, if you're not going for the Evo, the card that gets played out gets bounced at the end of their turn. So if you can pass them low while sitting on your 4s, out comes a Firemon on their turn. Get your on play check to top 3. Oh, they do whatever, they pass turn, back comes your Firemon. You now have an extra level 4 for when you need to climb in the next turn. So, like, it's stuff like that, just recognizing that this plays out the same level that's on top. So if you have to climb but you can't degenerate, sometimes it's better to just stay on the level you're on. Maybe play a rookie like a Coronamon that will print you an extra memory next turn. Or a Lunamon to be able to bounce your 4 stack back if you don't feel like staying on the 4. Then you've got 2 level 4s to play with next turn, and your Corona and your Lunamon's already on field. It's things like that that you can use to make sure that you're not losing these resources. Because remember, you only have 8. 4 of each, and once they're gone, unless you're on Phobos, they're gone. And then you also still have to find Phobos. So just ending on a 4 sometimes is better than climbing on a 5 for no reason. It genuinely is worth it. And of course, doing the DNA on their turn is whatever. Most of the time, you're not actually popping something because you're blowing it up with Apollo, or you've already stunned it into oblivion with Diana, and it's really just, okay, I'm making it because I don't want to pay for it. Yeah. This is Grace Nova. This deck, even though it is still missing some consistency pieces that we don't get till BT16, the Edison of Digimon, this deck absolutely can clean up your locals. It does require some high roll, it does require some technical play, and some decisions that you made 13 turns ago will absolutely bite you in the ass. You can play for the long haul, but you probably don't have to. And yeah, card games are sick this year. I'll be doing some other decks that come out across. You'll be seeing simulator footage, you'll be seeing actual gameplay footage coming soon, because Grace Nova was on top tables for 2 of the rounds that were on camera, so look forward to plenty of Grace Nova stuff where you get to see a little bit more of a traditional like boost build and the cracked out source build. Yeah, watch the podcast, by the way, where we can continue to gas up this deck. We'll be doing a bunch of new stuff and you should definitely tune in for it. But till next time, y'all. Peace.